All right, what is going on? So I just went through and I did this whole recording, and it was like 50 minutes. And you know what happened was the microphone wasn't working in OBS. So all the recording was dead silent. Well done. Pro streaming. So with that said, um yeah, like all of what I said was, like just lost. So I'll go through and I'll give you guys a breakdown of like what I did to create this. And this was requested by a friend of mine named David. Um, Go check him out. He's actually starting to build his channel. He has some really good ideas coming up. And if you guys go to Aviated Man or at Aviated Man on YouTube, then like I said, he has some really good ideas for uh some stuff coming up. I don't want to like give it away, but he just started his channel and he's getting in the process of getting everything together so he can put the content out. But in the meantime, if you guys want to go over and check him out, you know, subscribe, get notified, and that way you can kind of see what he's doing. But with that said, here is the end result of what I was creating. And the gist of what we were looking at was based off of just creating interesting things out of just procedural shaders. So, and I just accidentally hit play, but you can see our shader set up and it looks a little more complex than it actually is. So let's break this down instead of like going through everything again. So the first thing when you open a new scene, you're going to have your basic setup. It's going to be set to uh, Eevee here. You want to set that to cycles. Super important is you set your feature set to experimental. Experimental is important because it actually allows you to do micro displacement, which is what is going to drive all this over here. So for micro displacement, we will take this top one right here, and I will turn on my grid here and everything, an outliner. So with this one selected, if we come down here and we have like just a new material that we drop in, if you come down to displacement, it will be set to bump only. If you look at that, this is what happens. We get just a flat cube. We don't have anything exciting happening, no displacement, no nothing. We just have this bland flat cube. Turn it back to displacement and bump. And now you can see as we zoom in here, turn that off. You can see that along the edges, we're getting some displacement. You can also see how as you're looking, come up here. So these here, you're getting some nice bumping and, a little bit of uh, displacement along the edges and everything. But this actually comes from the subdivision. So if we set this to simple and we turn on adaptive subdivision, you can adjust your dicing scale. Be careful with adjusting your dicing scale because that's really going to hit your computer pretty hard as you increase that. So you want to be really careful. You can get more detail out of it, but again, just be careful. Uh, so like I said, we go set it to displacement and bump, simple. We do our dicing scale, and we just modify our subdivision surface. Or you can hit control and then 1. That'll see it adds a subdivision of 1. So we'll undo that. And we can actually delete that. You see it, control 1. It gives us this little meatball. Simple. We're back where we were. And that is pretty much it for setting up like what we need. If you come down to the material itself, we're doing our displacement. And all I'm doing here is, let's break this apart. And we'll just take a look at what's going on. So what we have going on here is these are actually base material. I'm just using one texture. So I have a color ramp where I made it grayscale. And then that's pretty much all I did for this one. And on this one, we're just using a noise texture. All we're doing. If we look at that, you can see what that does. And all I'm doing is I'm holding, as you can see down here, shift control, and I'm clicking on the color ramp. And that gives us a view. Control shift, click, and it connects up. Make sure that you have Node Wrangler installed. That should be like with any video. They're going to tell you that like right off the bat. So up here, we can take a look at what we have. It's just a Voronoi texture. And, it was something to add just a little breakup and everything to it. But the main parts are just the texture, duplicate of the texture with some different settings for the color ramp, which we really didn't need to do. We could actually delete that one, come up here, and we could just connect that there. Same thing. So yeah, we could simplify it that way too. And then, like I said, for this down here, this is where we have our noise texture and we have it multiplied in, and then we had it darkened, which I don't know as I necessarily want darkened. Let's see what we have. The multiply was actually what I was looking for. Not really much of a difference on the darken, but I meant to hit multiply. And then, yeah, that's literally pretty much it. And like I said, with this one up here, it was just adding some detail. We can that shouldn't have gone dark like that. Oh, it gets weird sometimes. Which I don't know why it does that, but yeah. So we can crunch that down. And you can see how it gives us kind of these veins and stuff now. And what I was doing earlier was you can utilize this scale here and you can actually, animate it over time. And as you do that, it gives it some extra movement and details. You can go kind of push it. Yeah, depending on what you wanted to do. But it's definitely something that, you can explore. Distortion in there. Let's see. See if I wanted to. kind of what I was looking for there. And a lot of this is just experimenting. But you can make all of these like really interesting shapes and everything. But like I said, it's basically this is the texture that I'm using. It was just one for an example. And then I'm just pushing it through a color ramp, putting that into the roughness and into the specular here. And that's really it. Yeah, I'm doing the same, and I'm pumping that into darken or with a noise texture. And this is what this is coming out to. We can obviously pull that. And if we want to mix those two together, to give us some interesting looks here. Give us maybe a couple areas that are a little shinier. And really, it just depends on, you know, how you want to adjust this. You know, be careful on displacement. Yeah, you can definitely kind of play with how everything, you know, like the sizing. You can explore like, uh, you know, the materials. It gives us kind of an interesting look there. Actually, there we go. Make our little meat cubes. Uh, and just so again, uh, it depends on the materials that you use. It depends on you know, this was just a face texture, and that's how we're getting some of this. But then, we're mixing in, once again, the noise texture, Voronoi texture, or Voronoi texture, Voronoi. Um, and then we're going ahead and doing just a color ramp. Yeah, lost my train of thought there. And we can crunch that or adjust it how we need to. And then the main thing is you can export this as a texture, as your displacement. You can do roughness, you can do normal and all that, or you can leave it as it is. And, that's totally fine as well. The one thing I did do on the subsurface was I adjusted that. I just kind of explored how some of this might look. That looks a little waxy, but uh if we come back in, still looking kind of waxy, but pull the weight of this back. And this is all to personal taste, no pun intended, with our little meat cubes. But as you're experimenting with all this, make sure to look at reference, make sure that things are at least semi in the real world. But once again, to kind of recap what I had said, and I don't want to make this too long, we're already at 25 minutes, but make sure that in here it's EV and set it to cycles. Make sure you're on experimental for whatever cube. Just use a test cube to start. But whatever you have, make sure that your subdivision is set to adaptive and set to simple. And also on the material itself, make sure that your displacement and bump is set under the surface settings here. And once again, here's what I was doing. That over, that down here. Clean this up a little bit. And yeah. So just experiment with this part. You don't need that. So you can see how if we disable this with M, you can see how adding, things like extra Voronoi textures or noise textures or anything like that, that's going to give you more detail. You can see how we're getting the additional detail out of that just by disabling and enabling it. So I hope this helped. If you have any questions, then feel free to let me know. Or if you have any suggestions, I'm totally open to hearing what you guys have to say. And, I love learning from you guys. It's helped out a ton. Hopefully, this gives back a little bit. And have a great afternoon, great weekend, and I'll catch you guys later on.